We are recording and we are live now with Isaac Mids, astrologer, tarotist, drummer. And you said to introduce you as a wombat. Is there any reason why?
I was obsessed with wombats when I was young, just how people have spirit animals. And for whatever reason, I was just very much attracted to wombats. And it just, I don't know, I just resonated with the vibe. And then when I was starting my blog, so it's slightly conspiratorial, but also like I was trying to be like positive or wholesome conspiracy. And so I was like, well, down the wombat hole instead of down the rabbit hole.
Down the wombat hole. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I came up with. But yeah, it's dark and I like it. I have a cool wombat tattoo now as well. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know much about wombats. I know that they're very quick and they are not as, clumsy as they look. That's what I know.
Yes, they seem very cute and innocent, but they can be not necessarily aggressive, but just very tenacious. And they're excellent diggers. They dig like massive underground, like burrow systems, which go for ages. And they have very sharp claws and stuff. Yeah, and so it matched. I don't know. So I have my moon at the start of Capricorn, and then my midheaven basically conjunct the galactic center.
Yeah,
this is astrology here, and if those who know the Vedic lunar mansions or the nakshatras, that's Mula, which is like digging into the truth. So it made sense from that perspective as well as a sort of what your reputation is or what you want to be branded for. So it all made sense, which is nice. It was a nice little synchronistic thing.
Interesting combo we have because mine was always intuitively an owl.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so like a snow owl. That would be when I was 3 years old, the first thing I could draw was an owl. And then someone told me somewhere in Byron, yeah, your spirit animal is owls. And I was like, that makes so much sense. And I actually the same day saw that, oh my God, I forgot how they call Tohawk, the sort of semi-owl, the Australian style one. I don't know what the proper name of it is, but I saw that same day, that animal. But yeah, remind us, where is the galactic center again? For those who don't know.
So it's 27 degrees Sagittarius, tropical. Yeah.
And you passed the exam. Stamp of approval. Nice. You're a real astrologer. I'm just joking. Okay, so the topic of our conversation today, we're going to keep the serious topics and talk about them nice and easy, I guess. I hope. Yeah. So we are talking about the difference between 2020 and 2025, where we are now, how the whole collective consciousness, unconsciousness has shifted, and also some discussion along the topic of Saturn ingress into Aries, which is happening literally within like a couple of weeks, 25th or 26th of May. And yeah, Neptune, he's already ingressed into Aries. So we will be talking about like those two clusters, the shift from Pisces into Aries with those two big players, and also just retrospecting on the whole shift, I guess. So let's call it shift. We're going to speak in code, so make it squeaky clean for YouTube. But yeah, definitely remember what happened in 2020. So my first question would be, if that was the plot twist 2020 that no one really asked for, but they were all preparing, all astrologers were like saying, when Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto will conjunct in Capricorn, there's going to be something happening. And we know what has happened in 2020, right? So now is 2025. So what is the main energy kind of we're stepping into now versus then? Like, how are these two? Like, what is the script change happening now from then? Because that was like a big shift. And now we're like, oh, another big shift. So how did that two same or different?
Yeah, that whole conjunction, it was like a three-way, almost four-way conjunction when Mars came in as well at the start of 2020. So it was like, like Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and Mars, but all across the Capricorn Aquarius cusp of tropical. So it was very like societal. So Capricorn, the sort of top-down structures, institutions, organized religion, law, those things which sort of set boundaries and restrictions being Saturn ruled, and then transitioning into the sign of the collective. Whereas, so that felt like the shift. It was like these sort of top-down structures almost giving way to a more collectivist or bottom-up, but still not necessarily individual based. There was a lot of doing things for the collective, the sort of the greater good and what's best for my neighbours and that sort of thing. That was the vibe. It's interesting that, and with the Saturn Jupiter conjunction happened on the first degree of Aquarius. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now where we've almost graduated to the end of the zodiac, and so now we're starting. So now we actually get to come at it from a more individual place, or like the main character. We can actually be the main character if we associate Aries, the start of Aries, with being the first house. It is the rising sign is the main character that we're all playing in this game of life. So that feels like the main change. We've worked through these broader changes, then we've dealt with all the Piscean, like spirituality, inner work, everyone's gone deep inside of themselves and faced up to some Saturn and Pisces.
The last 3 years.
But now we come out and we're at the first sign, which is about individualism, self-determination, expressing that true pioneering Aries, Mars spirit. So that sort of to me feels like the main shift in things. We can really lean into that main character energy.
The main hero of the script. So it's not just like them or those people or just random people or like big concepts. It's more like what's in it for me personally. And what was your personal take, like a journey from 2020 to 2025, if you don't mind me asking, like in terms of your career, maybe personal, like inner world issues?
Yeah, sure. It was pretty intense. 4 years pretty much. I moved away so I'm in Western Australia for those so I moved away from Perth, capital city, to regional area in 2019, and then so pretty new to a new home, and there was still trying to wanted just a complete shift, a career shift, lifestyle shift, all that sort of stuff. And so found some new lines of work, and then whatever it was, the shift happened, and that caused a pretty significant sort of change in the people I was associating with. Moved away from a lot of the friendship groups I was still holding on to from Perth, from my old home, and then lost all 3 of the modes of employment that I had in 2021, started 2022, and had to work through that process about, I guess, the sort of disillusionment, standing up for what I felt was right. And then, so that really separated me from an old version of myself. Saturn was in Aquarius, so my 12th house, being Pisces rising. So I felt like I had a lot of like deep, like really just isolation, like owning that sort of 12th house space of retreat and facing up to what the things that we undermine ourselves with or self-sabotage, all that sort of stuff, which is very Neptunian as well. And then through that, I guess, found astrology, found tarot, found completely new ways of looking at the world and new ways of seeing myself. So I'm been fairly brutal financially, but so I've had to rely on people to work through that. Yeah, that's the cliff notes of what I've been through, but it's led me to a huge transformational process, and led me to careers or professional lines which feel completely authentic and something I'm really excited about going into the future. Yeah.
Wow. You just mentioned like you were going through the 12th house issues, which is the 12th house is like the house of the undoing, the Neptunian ambiguity sort of place. And I assume you dealt with a lot of facing your fear and like turning those stones that are unturned, and you're like, okay, what's here now? Let's just go with this one. And you like unturn it, and then what you see there could be you just don't even expect, right? Like with the 12th house, you don't know. It's the house of the unknown as well. I just want to ask, maybe you have some tips on working through the 12th house and facing the fears, and what's your take on it? Give us some pro tips.
Yeah.
Since you have just come out of it.
Yeah. So the best description I've heard of the 12th house is the places which are hardest to see, whether it's the world, the external world around us, or the parts of ourselves. So we associate hospitals, prisons, places of respite, retreat, foreign lands. They're all the most common significations for 12th house things. People who have been victimized, 12th house sons often are drawn to working with people who have been victimized or are on the fringes of society, immigrants, like refugees, mental health, people with poor mental health, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's, in one sense, 12th house energy makes you more aware of those parts of the world, which most people don't see or most people don't want to see. Because this idea of undermining, they undermine what we think society is. When Saturn was in my 12th house, I became a disability support worker.
Wow.
And I just got exposed to parts of society which I had no idea existed, and which completely changed the way you view the way our society works. You start to see where the cracks are and who falls through them, and how we like to paper over those cracks and act like they're not there. So I found that really interesting. And then through that, it was a pathway towards those hidden parts of myself, or just of the collective, like unconscious.
Because it's Aquarius, right? It makes sense. With you, it was like very like Aquarian structural society. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy how it's just so literal.
It's cool, isn't it? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And just one more thing on that. I became more aware of, let's call it the supernatural, or the spiritual, that sort of world that we can't see. And I guess realized that's a very significant part of the 12th house. And then since doing a lot of people's birth charts who have 12th house placements, they all seem to have like a heightened connection to the unseen parts of life, however you want to call it. Some people see that more figuratively, or some people see it literally as spirit entities, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely lots to unpack. There's probably more to unpack in the 12th house than any other house. Yeah.
I think it's my favorite house, honestly. I call these unseen worlds the realms. So they are the archetypal realms, they are the angelic realms, godly realms. They're also lower densities that are pretty, you don't want to go there. But we all, I feel can have access to that. That's why why have a 12th house in our chart, since it's right there. Even if we don't have planets there, it's still there. It's ruled by a particular sign. And then there's always a pathway to, I call it expanding the perceptive field, because it's all about perception. It's like the background that I have chosen today. It's coming in and out. And what it is, the magnetic field of the earth hitting the rays of the sun. And if you take a photo of the sun, you will not be able to see fully what it is. It's like that, I feel. It's like you look at the sun rays and then you feel the warmth, but then when you look at the sun, you might go blind. So there's like a whole range. And in the 12th house, that range is, I feel like, eternal. Like it's just, the more you learn about it, the more keeps coming up. It's that place where they're undoing. Definitely like a wombat hole. You just keep going and it never stops.
I know. Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And also it's related, actually comes into our next question. It's related to the dreams, right? The dreams, visions, the perceptive field, the remote viewing. Also, there's like another thing that I'm learning is to remote view locations and pretty much any place. And everyone can do it, apparently. Apparently everyone can, if they believe they can. So my question is, a lot of people feel like they've been waiting for their dreams to land. Love, career, moving countries. And in this new era that's coming with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, this new chapter, is the delay a wise pause or just the universe's version of buffering? So delays, right?
I mean, because I guess personally speaking, it felt like we've been delayed long enough. The first part of this year has felt like this big sort of wishy-washy, like wading through the muck, especially, I guess, everything in Pisces, and that would be your 12th house as well, wouldn't it? With
I'm just literally, I'm crawling out.
Yeah, I know.
Barely.
But like Mars in Cancer, the planet we associate with being able to take action and feel like we're self-actualizing in a fire, in a sort of creative essence. It's been just going back and forwards in Cancer, which is traditionally where it's in fall, where it's least like itself, least able to actually act properly. So it's literally been trying to like run through water. That's how I've been understanding it.
Yeah.
So it feels like we've done enough. And I'm sure people watching this, just want to get, if you've had similar experiences, you just want to get going, and the sort of the buffering's gone on long enough. That's certainly what it feels like in my perspective anyway. But if we look at the astrology from an objective perspective, we've had all these tastes of this Aries going forwards energy, Venus and Mercury coming back and forwards, doing the retrograde cycles over the 0 point, over the
as we speak. As we speak. Now what? Now we have, hang on, let me just give Venus is just past Neptune. It's at 4 degrees of Aries.
So it's still in, Venus is still in shadow. So there's still things we're working through from Venus retrograde. Mercury's passed, finally.
Just past Chiron.
Yeah. And then it gets a juicy square to Pluto on the day of the Scorpio full moon. So we got some fun happening this time next week, or sort of Monday, Tuesday.
13th of May.
Yeah, so that's a good one. But back to your question, we get this really in-your-face glimpse of what's come after this period, when Saturn gets over into Aries, and then things start to really take shape, and all the Piscean dreaming suddenly takes shape. That's what Saturn is really good for, defining something and showing what's actually real and what's separated from all the dreams and fantasies. And then
sorry, I interrupted you. I just saw a vision. I will ask you a bit later. Just keep going.
Yeah. And then until we get this really amazing alignment across July and August, when Pluto's in Aquarius and Saturn, Neptune in Aries, and Uranus is in Gemini, so all in the masculine signs. And then they go backwards. So like Pluto stays in Aquarius, but Uranus goes back into Taurus, where a lot of people say it's in detriment, or it doesn't do too well there. And then Saturn and Neptune both go back. They get within less than a quarter of a degree from conjunction, and they stop and go backwards. So it's like we've been given this final little buffering challenge, where it's like coming into division, and then it's like for everyone's sort of peace of mind's sake, to just prepare that we do have a little like halt, or a little final little like test of patience, if you want to call it that, before things really kick into gear in 2026. So I guess if we can integrate that, or just see that coming now and plan for it and integrate it, we can use that final Piscean preparation period.
Learning and preparation, just like testing. Letting the muscles recover.
That's a good way to put it. It could be like things could move quickly in the next few months, and I think a lot of us will be ready for it. So maybe we do need that. We do need to just like back off, and then our spiritual muscles will be properly toned 2026. So I don't know.
They won't hurt as much.
Yes.
The vision that I had when you were saying about the shift from Pisces to Aries, you know what I saw? Because I remember back in my homeland, waking up to school, my mom would turn the light on like in the next door, not in our room. But there was one time we just wouldn't wake up. We wouldn't get up. And she comes in and turns the light on, and it's like pitch black. And now the lights are on, and it's like this. Oh, it's the worst feeling in the world when you just like time to wake up. Oh my God, that's what I just saw. So do you think it's like that? Like, or it's going to be just like a dimmer, more like a dimmer? From what you have said, it seems like more like a dimmer. Or do you think it's going to be intense when Uranus will go into Gemini and trine Pluto, and Aries, Saturn and Neptune are there in Aries now. Do you think it's going to be like a jolt, or rather?
Yes, hard to tell whether, because we get that sort of little initiation and then things back off. And my feeling is everyone's seen what's coming, and in the collective, that sort of blueprint about that it's called, people call it the basket. That's that minor grand trine between Pluto and Aquarius.
The basket, yes.
And so they're all in like masculine, want to use that terminology, signs. My feeling is that maybe it happens fairly more. It's the sort of the dimmer this year. But my feeling is once we get to next year and we've had that preview and then everything gets back into those signs again, it just takes off. My feeling is that it could be just not necessarily explosions, but just it's this sense of ignition that comes at the start of 2026 because of that long build-up period and because of getting that glimpse and that little taster.
Yeah.
And essentially, if you're nerdy about astrology and you watch the planets, it's sort of like Saturn and Neptune, they get it into Aries and they come like so close to getting, and then they go backwards and then they stop and then they station direct again, and then it's just like zoom, and then Saturn just zooms past Neptune, and so it feels like there's that sort of takeoff period like in Aries. If we think to, I won't get too into the weeds here, but if we think to the sort of like next year, that we'll have Pisces season in March, and there will be eclipses.
Yeah.
And then once we get into April of next year, the sun will be into Aries and will be past all those sort of second round of past eclipses. My feeling is that the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, I think it's sort of February, bunch of eclipses in March, and then once the sun gets into Aries, it could just be, So that's like, who knows, but that's a general timeline I've been looking at. Yeah, it could be a very, very fun eclipse season, not like this one. So for those who follow these things, across the middle and end of March, we had eclipses.
Yeah,
centered in the Pisces Virgo axis, but also the solar eclipse was in Aries. But there was just so much like murkiness and not really knowing what was going on and that sort of thing. But this time, both Saturn and Neptune will be in Aries rather than Pisces for
next
the Pisces eclipse season. So it's just going to be completely different, a fire-dominated set of eclipse seasons. So yeah, that could be when things really pick up, I reckon.
So it will be like 2025 is the testing ground, starting slow with the Mars retrograde, which means like from the beginning of the year, if it starts like that, this is the rest of the year for you. I think the blessing in disguise is that we feel like this year is going faster for some reason. The irony of it all, like we are in May already, like what's going on? The acceleration of time is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's been really slow in terms of just momentum, right? But the momentum will be, like from what you have said, momentum will definitely be mid this year, 2025, and then 2026 is going to be everything is just picking up and just let's go, hold on to your hats.
That's a vibe. That's the vibe I'm getting since I try and plan it out. So it'll be interesting to see if that's how it does play out. Just with the time thing, a bit of digression. That feels like a very 12th house thing, where time, almost like you escape the clutches of time. Almost in the 12th house, and Saturn being the lord of time. And traditional astrology said that Saturn was most at home in the 12th house.
Wow, okay.
So it may almost be
chilling there.
Almost like when we're occupying the 12th house, we almost have, maybe we have the most control of time that is possible, or we're able to, things can either move quickly or move slower. So
mastering the time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a personal note. I have had, just finishing up. I'm Aries rising. So Saturn was in the 12th house for 3 years. And I actually was like, I'm going to do therapy. So I did therapy during these 3 years. It's such a good thing. I'm so happy. I found my person, my therapist, and like, she's the best and she helps me so much. And just unturning those stones, like every stone is now unturned, washed, polished, dried in the sun, and then is on the right shelf. It's great. Metaphorically, of my subconscious and all my trauma and all those things. So highly recommend, if someone has like 12th house transit, just use it, because you can have so much done within that time, however the planet takes to go through that. I hope it's not Pluto.
That's amazing. yeah, I'm looking forward to having, Pisces risings have good old 15 years of Pluto in there.
Oh my God, that's you.
So,
you're gonna have
and so you'll be like making oppositions to, I've got Sun, Venus, Mars in Leo. So I've got this really interesting 12th house, 6th house opposition going on over the next sort of 10 years or so, which would be cool. But just back to your story, that's such a great, like, highest manifestation of Saturn in the 12th house, just like facing, like dealing with your shit, like Saturn
clinically dealing
is
with
reality. Yeah, not doing what needs to be done. Saturn is, we like these sort of rigid institutions which get demonized. So a lot of people will demonize like therapy or see it as a weakness or whatever. So it's with Neptune there's this idea about accepting limitations, accepting any way that we might have been playing the victim.
Yeah.
And Saturn makes us face up to that. So yeah, it's just a really cool, as you said, a very literal way to just see these planets and how they play out in action there. And yeah, I'm glad it's helped as well. That's really cool.
Yeah. I'm really happy. And actually, just with you, just the question, like off the bat, just right in my mind, with the literal versus not literal. That's how I do astrology. I literally sometimes say, okay, Mercury is a child, or Saturn is the dad, or Jupiter is the husband. Like I give this like symbology to it. And other people I find going into that cosmos and psyche area where it's very, I don't know, like classical literature style, where it's all the feels. Like you have to take so many words together so that works. What do you think? Is this just doesn't matter, whatever works, or in terms of learning astrology or understanding it or picking up on the energies?
Yeah. So I've started reading Cosmos and Psyche, and I think it's a really cool starting point to understand the archetypes in a sort of general, as you said, almost literary sense. I've had a lot of success in understanding the planets and the planetary archetypes and getting a feel for their essence by just channeling, I guess, the sort of the Greek gods. So I do short stories. I've done some short stories on my blog, just using Hermes and using Zeus and using Kronos and these mythical characters to explain a transit or a particular type of set series of alignments that are going on in the sky at the moment. So that's helped me, and that's, I guess, all I can speak of. I've seen a few times where things have been very literal, as in sun, father, like moon, mother. Venus retrogrades, for example, for me have been very much tied into interactions with my sister. So just a really fun is that. So for those who don't know, Venus retrogrades are often said to be linked to things will happen with female siblings.
Yep.
And so with this current 8-year cycle of the Venus retrograde in Aries, 8 years ago, I went on a holiday with my sister to Northern Europe, so exploring places that she might want to move to.
Wow.
And so it was really cool. I went to Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, and then Scotland.
Wow.
So that was essentially 2017, started 2017. And then this year, so 8 years later, I ended up going on a sort of spontaneous trip to visit her in Melbourne, where she lives. And then she ended up also making a trip back to here, to Western Australia. So that's just so you can see it can be very literal sometimes. So these planets can represent people in our lives, and the transits play out very like on the nose sometimes. And I think those things happen and they prove, like, beyond reasonable doubt that firstly astrology is like real, but they can be, what the right word is, like very humbling,
convoluted sometimes.
Yes, because you sort of like, wow, like how there's mysterious forces at work here that I can't even comprehend that is governing our lives. Hopefully that answers your question, but certainly I wouldn't speak on sort of other people's experiences. We all have our own relationship to astrology and also the archetypes as well. And the archetypes aren't just limited to astrology. They manifest in different ways of our life, but certainly they're some of the ways which I found it really helpful to to access the sort of what the core essence of the archetypes are.
Yeah. I know that my archetype is the magician. Actually, the psychologist told me out of all the people. Yeah, my archetype is the magician, and the magician's shadow is that the magician is their own enemy, which is so true. So sometimes like less is more when it comes to magic. Oh my gosh. So speaking of Venus retrograde, and Venus is the planet of relationships, traditionally, planet of self-worth and of the comforts, the creature comforts ruled by Taurus and Libra. So I just wanted to ask, what would be the blueprint for relationships within the results of this Venus retrograde and 2025 and beyond? What would be your opinion here?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Venus, the planet we most associate with relationships. So we can really get to grips on what's happened to us over the last 2-3 months, really. Venus moved into her shadow area, and she'll move out in a few days. And then we can look at her two signs, Taurus and
Could you
Libra.
remind me when it went retrograde, just so for the evergreen people who come here later? That would be 2025, and that would be February, March, and April. That would be retrograde. Yeah.
So 6 weeks when... Yeah, so it's a 6-week period. So went retrograde March the 1st. So basically, essentially the start of eclipse season.
Yeah, that's right. It was all happening at once.
It was. Yeah. And then Mercury turned retrograde on the 14th, which was the day of the lunar eclipse, the total lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
And then Mercury turned direct, I think maybe first just, and then Venus.
It was like...
it was just, So that's why no one probably knew what was going on.
Yeah, March was very murky.
Yeah, it was. And then Venus turned direct on April 12th. So basically the middle of April. But a starting point would be really looking at that mid-April period. And then because when Venus stationed direct again, she essentially did it in a double or triple conjunction with Saturn and also the North lunar node.
Yes. Oh, my God.
So it was this crazy... It basically, even say the whole of April, Venus was in the orb of influence of both Saturn and the North Node, so the head of the dragon in Pisces. So Venus is exalted in Pisces. We see the best of all the qualities of Venus, this sort of all-encompassing sense of love, of beauty, seeing the beauty everywhere. But Saturn was really forcing this refinement or this
test.
So I made a video that we get this sense across that period where love would be, or this idea of love would be everything that sort of matters at different points of April. Like everything in the world would become secondary to issues of love and relationships and attachment. So I encourage people to really study or reflect on what happened over April concerning relationships, which relationships felt like suddenly they meant more and kept you grounded in reality, or which ones suddenly, I guess, maybe went to the wayside or just suddenly didn't seem as important, or there were things about them which was revealed which you didn't see before. So that would be a really good starting point to approach relationships from a really grounded reality space. And a lot of things may have felt very fated. That's the sort of vibe of the North Node. It can feel like we're being drawn into something, whether we want it or not, whether it might feel a bit uncomfortable or confronting, like we're being drawn out of our comfort zone. So trying to piece those three different energies together of Venus being exalted, but then with this sort of disciplining influence, even a sort of melancholy influence of Saturn, but then this sort of fated, drawn to something, whether we like it or not, energy of the North Node. And then I think when Venus gets into Taurus, things will be able to find the best of April. Things will start to really make sense, or we'll feel good about this. We'll feel stable in our relationships, and all those when it felt like it might have been going either way during April, suddenly
It's solidifies.
we're finding the best of that. So something to look forward to. That's probably
7th of June.
Yeah, so over June. And then Venus sort of speeds through Gemini. It isn't bad in Gemini. That's where we might start to broaden our horizons a bit. Venus Gemini likes to have multiple options, likes to be a bit flirtatious. That's probably a good way to understand Venus in Gemini. And then she gets into Cancer and
Jupiter will be there.
Yes. So we get this really interesting and I think reassuring and like this, I get the sense of like safety.
Yeah.
Venus in Cancer, this sort of emotional security with an exalted Jupiter. So Jupiter is in its sign of exaltation in Cancer. Yeah. Traditionally. Yeah. And that conjunction happens, I think,
12th of August.
Yeah.
I'm here in real time.
Yes,
scrolling.
Awesome. Love it. But
good team.
And so what's really interesting about that, so if we go back to Taurus, Uranus will be out of Taurus. So this sense of instability won't be there, at least for that period. God. But then Mars will have just entered Libra, Venus's other sign. And so Mars will hit this opposition with Neptune and Saturn. At the same time. I love how these things sync up. At the same time that Venus joins Jupiter. So we'll get the sense of what is safe, where are we protected, where do we feel home in relationships, where are we able to express ourselves emotionally. That sort of maternal instinct in all of us feels like it's supported and is able to express itself. And we find meaning and coherence is always a good word for Jupiter, especially when it's exalted. But then Mars in Libra, so Libra being the 7th sign, what the sign we most associate with interpersonal relationships. Yeah, that's right. I feel like it's like Mars is, okay, how do we act? What action are we then taking in our relationships to solidify or substantiate them with Saturn, but also elevate them to their highest level, which is Neptune. That sort of that interplay between Saturn and Neptune, which is making the highest ideal or something and bringing a dream, a fantasy or a dream into something very tangible and real. And then Mars is wanting to take very bold, decisive, courageous action in Libra about relationships, about things that make us feel safe and supported and give us emotional meaning. So I think we're almost on this journey in our relationships up until mid-August. And we get a real sense of clarity and how do we act to bring all those archetypes together. And then we then have that in place, that relationship safety support network in place when whatever happens, when everything goes retrograde in the second half of 2025. So that might be at least just a sort of a timeline for people to keep in mind, to draw together what's happened over the last few months. What
are you ready to do for your loved ones? What are you ready to compromise on or not compromise on? Like all those things will be pretty much crystal clear through effort. You have to do something about it. You can't just like be in your on cloud 9 and La La Land. It's like becoming more obvious. And if someone is not doing something, that's a sign, that's an action as well. If someone is not doing enough or something like that, these things will be like coming to the surface, right? Yeah. And I think that sort of mid-August period is some of the most potent astrology you could imagine. So it's this big kite formation that you see. So obviously Mars opposite Neptune and Saturn, but then forming the minor grand trine, Pluto and Uranus. So a lot of things will just become very clear, very unavoidable, hard to ignore, both in our lives and in the collective. And so same for the money as well, because Venus is money, right? Indeed. Yes. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Good to remind ourselves of that. Maybe we're also being really disciplined or real, dealing with reality concerning spending habits, Jupiter, Cancer, this sense of security
And, home and security, financial security is a really good way to build on that theme or build on what we might be dealing with in August as well, for sure.
So it's good. It's good. What would be your like advice? Do you suggest people plan, or rather make it a bit more, let the grip off so that they see what manifests? Sometimes they're like these tricks. Some people go and do a big grip and then I manifest this reality as to my will, and others are, no, when I actually let go, that's when the magic happens. So what would be like your take on this? Like how to like drive this car? Is it manual or automatic?
Good. I would probably lean towards the second one, just because that the astrology of like July, August just looks so, who can even possibly imagine what that's going to look like with all those planets lining up and configured, and the Sun and Mercury. That's just coming out of a Mercury retrograde as well in August. So there's that sort of a bit of a lack of clarity about what's going on tied into all of that. So not that we can't manifest or we can't have those, but I feel like anything we want to manifest or have had goals or visions about, we've already, I think it's there already.
Yeah, and even since 2020, that's when it all began. And now look, everything is like real now, for real.
Yeah, so I feel like hopefully we've all done that and we're ready. And now we're being very attentive to things that are going on. Reactive isn't a bad word necessarily when there's lots happening in the world. If we're reacting from a place of that isn't fearful,
we're just not being okay with things, and we're just making it known, and zero tolerance policy on some aspects that are just not supposed to be on this earth at this time. You know what I mean? But we're not going to say what it is. Everyone has their own list.
I think Jupiter is the greater benefic. So if in doubt, look to Zeus. And in Cancer, it's what feels safe. Where is home? What feels safe and protective, and where we are emotionally supported. So that's almost our foundations, and Cancer is the foundation of the chart. It's the fourth house. It's down the bottom. So if we have that, if we're having that foundation of comfort and safety in place, that feels like the best chance we have to then react in a positive way, or to adjust. Maybe like adjusting,
make the right decision,
or being flexible and being adaptable might be a good way, a better way, better words to put it. But I guess to bring that back, I feel like we've done the manifestation, that manifesting, whether you've got the vision boards or all your sort of keywords and that sort of thing, however you do it, and it's there, and we don't need to overthink it and refine it if you need to, but just be prepared for 2026. I think that's when
I'm excited. I'm so excited for it. I'm already like, when would I be famous? Like, 2026. Oh my God, this is too funny. But actually, speaking on the Jupiter in Cancer, it's funny how like Jupiter comes into this Cancer area and massages this deep tissue drill that Mars just did there.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, take it easy. Just let the nutrients sink in. This is the chamomile oil or whatever, like lavender oil. But Mars there. Oh my God. I had a death in the family during Mars retrograde. My nan passed away, and then she's my favorite person. The first time in my life. So I guess good that I did therapy. I prepared for it. You know?
Sorry to hear that. And that's a very literal Aries risings, because the signs and the houses are pretty much
Aries rising.
You can get things, I guess, very clean and literal, more so than other rising signs potentially. So and then with all that stuff going on, 12th house Pisces, is the idea of loss and grief and dealing with those things.
All aligning. And what's the weirdest part? I was actually reading this chart. I was like, me and my mom sometimes we read charts for the future. And that's what I was like saying. And when I was saying it, I was predicting it, but I didn't really feel it. But when it's actually real, visceral Mars, it's like boots on the ground. It's like visceral energy. And it did feel like waves, like Cancer, like moon waxing, waning, and it's like this emotional waves coming in and out. And I realized, wow, that's what grief is. So yeah, my learning curve there. I'm talking about it lightly now, but let's see what happens later on tonight. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So what are your Saturn, Neptune bringing dreams into reality? Because that's very personal for you, Aries rising. Yeah. Who do you want to be in 1 year, 2 years time?
So they're all happening in my first house. So now, like, I still have them on the cusp between the 12th house and the first house. Yeah. So I will be having them in a year, literally, like, you raise me up.
Yeah, nice.
This is what is going to be the soundtrack of the day. I will be brushing my teeth in the shower with this song, and hopefully my YouTube channel will get monetized.
Nice.
So yeah, like, for me, what I feel, Saturn is like the authority. So I will be finally out of this in the back streets somewhere of the internet to the forefront. So like authority, I become an authority, trusted authority. I'm an individual. And if I continue to work hard and smart, I will get my results within that time. And after that, it's like a snowball effect. I will be very curious when Saturn will be going into Taurus. Hopefully, all that hard work that I have done, but that's what, like 3 years, will be the money, like the proper dosh, and we can go to Miami. Nice. And do a live there on the pink velvet level, leathery somethings. Well, this is what I need to manifest.
Yeah. Miami sounds very Neptunian as well, so that sounds good.
I'm just talking shit. Maybe Miami would be also passé by then. Maybe it will be I don't know. Maybe I would want to go to those highly spiritual places on the earth. That's what I'm studying now. Nice. I'm studying the Shambhala gates. I'm studying the God houses on planet Earth. And actually, I didn't realize that this thing called Heaven Lake, and it's not far from where I'm originally from. I will send you an image. I didn't realize that we were living next to the wonder of the world. It's like a beautiful lake. It's in North Korea. Oh, wow. And it's a beautiful lake. And when you look at it, it's got like 144 DNA healing like codes in it. So I think I just want to have enough resources to be able to go to those places and feel them like in my body, because now I'm smoke free, alcohol free, even caffeine free.
Have you ever done your astrocartography before?
I actually haven't. Guess what? Sydney is one of the best places for me.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Sydney, and maybe LA would have been, but like the thing burned to the ground, poor bugger.
Wow. Yeah.
And I felt that I was supposed to study in film school there. I was accepted in CalArts where Tim Burton went. Yep. But I felt like that's not the place for me. And I just thankfully I'm in Australia. I honestly cannot be happy enough that I'm here. And of course, I love the place I came from. But I'm here where I am. And you know what? Actually, interestingly enough, Saturn in the first house, stoic energy. So I went through like addiction and through betrayal trauma and through narcissist abuse. And now look at me. I'm like on the other end and strong and still got 20 years to spare in activities, which is good.
Saturn in Aries, there's this willing to take on a sort of adversarial energy, like consciously taking on Saturn rules the opposition. So there's this idea about, I'm willing to take on this sort of adversarial oppositional role in this part of my life and to own that and to take that on very courageously, to stand against something or to oppose something which needs to be opposed or needs a. So that's one thing I've been keeping in mind, how we, and this applies to everyone, how do we consciously step into this positive Neptunian highest version of the quote unquote adversary and stand against something, or stand up or stand our ground against something might be a good way to put it as well.
Oh my God, you just made me emotional. Like, honestly, I love listening to you. Like, I actually have been studying now how to dissolve the negative energies and entity attachments and other people, and dealing with just negative vibes, negative shit, and just dissolving it at the will, at the universal will of the individual and of mine as well. So like working with the collective grids and codes and
cool.
sustain our planet and that guard our planet. So that kind of like astrology is like one thing, and then that sort of goes into this other thing, and yeah,
that's some
direction.
wild. That's some wild 12th house stuff right there.
Yeah. Nice. So before I was like very scared of these things, but now I'm like, oh, actually, it's nothing to be. You shouldn't be scared. That's the thing. Shouldn't be scared of anything. Nothing to be scared of. There is this force, the negative force, the dark force, but there is also light force. And which one are you going to feed, kind of thing?
And that's the choice we have, isn't it? I think, that choice. Yep.
Thank you so much. I am just going to do an outro, an official outro. So enjoyable to chat. It's been 1 hour and 6 minutes, and it literally went to me like 15 minutes. I was waiting for our call for 15 minutes and I almost fell asleep, but now I'm like full of energy. I'm going to go to the gym. So your energy gave me energy. And for me, this is the best sign like ever.
Cool.
I feel like a fresh air, honestly. So I told it to you last time, but I feel even more now.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that was super fun. Yeah, and always keen to chat about these things. I'm sure there's multitudes of things we can talk about.
Let's lock another one in. Maybe even when that Venus will get into Cancer and will be with Jupiter. I think that would be a good, because you were amazing.
No, it was, I had a great time. I think it was nice and balanced between both of us. You asked most of the questions, but there was still back and forth, which was cool. And it was good that you gave me a chance to ask you questions as well. That felt like it did keep things balanced. It was super fun. It's great to talk about these things with someone who's like-minded and can sort of come at it from a sort of elevated perspective while still dealing with the nitty-gritty.
Oh yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. This is like the lube. I call it the lube.
Nice.
Otherwise, it's not gonna go in. It's gonna bleed. Oh man. All right, love you so much.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much, and looking forward to next time.
I'll chat to you soon.
Sure. Bye.
Bye, Isaac. Bye.